Are we? Oh, yeah.
We are live.
All right, guys. We are live. Episode 128 of the Shooter's Mindset. Thank you guys for joining us here. Got a nice crew with me today. We got, first of all, you guys are here to see Morgan Allen. Morgan has over 50. I know the number has climbed even more than that because I know that was probably an older Bayou. Bayou. What am I? Jeez, I'm starting off bad here. I'm missing the word. But over 50 regional and state championships here from Morgan Allen. Really good guy. I mean, I've hung out with him out with a match. I've trained with him, so I'm glad to have him on here, especially before a major match that I have coming. So it's really good to talk to Morgan. Morgan Allen's the guest here. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of knowledge and chat with some good friends.
Yeah, right on. We had Morgan on with Charlie on episode 35 is my guest here. So he's been on before, but we had some technical issues and he kind of lagged out, so we didn't get a lot of Morgan Allen that show. So we got him here for the whole show today. So make sure you use the Q&A and get your questions in throughout the day. Co-host here, the original co-host of the Shooter's Mindset show, Steve the Tank Durant's in the house. What's up, Steve?
Not much, man. Just glad to be here. Glad to spend the time talking with you guys and getting to chat up with Morgan a little bit.
Yeah, right on. Morgan,
Steve, I know your nickname was the Tank.
I am the Tank. Still not sure why, but
yeah, it's something that he just got it one day on the show. I think I just called him the Tank for that.
it's like an empty tank, but whatever.
Now, good story to boost up Steve a little bit. The Tank came from a video that he sent me of him boxing some dude that was like twice his size, I think, and I think he like was beating him up pretty good. So ever since then, I called him the Tank. I don't know if he has that type of. Yeah, I don't know if he has that tank now, but you never know. Good to have that skill. Nikki Clevenger's in the house. What's going on, Nikki?
Hey guys, how are you?
You found a way to hang up your jersey, I see.
I did. I propped a chair up on. There's like this is my guest bedroom, so there's like some wicker chest thing in front of the bed. I just propped a little chair up on there. I wanted to be cool like Morgan. He's got his hanging. I think yours is behind you. Jen's got hers behind her. Steve came in late. Get on the game, Steve. Come on.
That was my fault for not sending him a link, though. Yeah, so we can't.
Steve is always laid back, though.
Yeah.
He's always
wasn't even gonna invite me to the party. I'm like, dang.
He's like, dude, you're gonna send me an invite like 3 minutes before the show starts. Oops. Yeah, here's the invite. Jennifer Seymour is also in the house. What's going on, Jennifer?
Hello, everyone.
All right, we got some good stuff. Let's kick it off here with show announcements here. We got a new show announcement. The Shooter's Mindset website. It's theshootersmindset.com. It was like a WordPress. It was like I never kept up with it, but it's newly relaunched. I have someone redoing the whole website. We're going to be doing some articles now. It's really going to look high end, not like a free WordPress kind of like slapped together. So Friday it should be released. So theshootersmindset.com. Be sure to visit that for extra content and some articles that we're going to be writing here. It's going to be kind of a new thing for me, but hopefully I will enjoy the writing side of this industry here. The Shooter's Mindset app is also available on iPhones and Android devices, so iTunes, Google Play Store. If you enjoy watching the show from your mobile device, you can do so using the app. Also, Q&A section, bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you should see a Q&A section you can click on. You can ask your questions there, or on the Shooter's Mindset, we have a post pinned at the top where if you prefer to use Facebook, you can get your questions in throughout the show tonight. Show sponsors, Tactical Shit, shop.tacticalshit.com. We kind of have a nice little social media thing going on with the Thug Life photos. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it. Tactical Shit is now in it. And they have some really good gear. I know the website, Tactical Shit, what's that about? They have everything, okay? Charging handles, pistol gear, magazines, clothing. They got it all, battle belts. They got it all over at tacticalshit.com. Techwear USA, you can see Jen's fancy jacket. I'm glad you finally brought that jacket out, Jen.
I brought it and hung it up. I've been wearing it, so I never remember to bring it upstairs when I come up.
There you go. So
hey, let's see that thing.
That thing's sweet.
Hold on, I'll get it closer.
We say this like every show at the beginning now. It's like all about Jen's jacket with Techwear USA.
See? It's awesome. But look, the best part.
Wow, that's cool.
It has a zipper. See the zipper? Like that one's open because that's
cool.
where my gun goes. and I usually wear it matches. So your gun can stick out the little hole right there.
Nice.
Pretty nifty.
So for all your jersey needs, check out and jacket needs, and they also have the TechWell system. So if you guys shoot single stack and you guys are looking for a nice magwell with grip system, you can check out TechWare USA for that stuff too. And last one, Brett Russo, big supporter of the show. Thank you guys for thank him for the help. We do that every show, man. He's been a big boost to our show. So Morgan, let's kick this one off here. For those who are unfamiliar with you, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got started in the competitive shooting.
Sure. So back in 2006, I believe it was, every year on my birthday I could do something I've never done before, and that year it was a toss-up between going and shooting a gun and doing something else, and I decided to go shoot a gun. Showed up an indoor range, had to fill out some paperwork, and they said, you're in lane number 6, any questions? I said, well, how do you load it? Because I originally was asked, do you have a gun? I said, no, I need to rent one. And they said, well, what gun do you want to rent? I said, well, a 9mm. And they said, well, which one? And the only name I knew was a Glock. And they said, well, which one? I didn't know the difference between a 26, a 34, or 19, any of that stuff. But I knew it was black, so I pointed at the wall at the black guns, and he pulled one out. And he said, do you need EuroPro or iPro? And I said, yes. Well, what is that? And then he got me some ammo, and as soon as I said, how do you load it, his eyes got really big. I shot about 50 rounds, absolutely loved it, thought it was pretty cool, and I figured, I was going to go buy a gun. I want to be a responsible gun owner, so I signed up for a safety class. They canceled it because of low enrollment, and they called me and they said, we got you in this other class. I said, why don't you just give me my deposit back, and I'll go find another one. They said, no, we're gonna get you in this class. It's running for sure. And I didn't hear what else they said after that. I showed up as a concealed carry class with a live fire test after. And mind you, I'd only shot a gun once in my whole life before then. Well, the guy teaching the class is Tom Moratti, and he competes in IDPA and USPSA and has a training company and so forth. And afterwards, he said, hey, you should compete, because I managed to put everything in about the size of a quarter. And I thought he was talking about bullseye. I thought, nah, that sounds kind of boring. No thanks. He said, no, you get to run around, shoot guns, and a bunch of different targets, and the targets move around. I said, well, hey, when are we going? So he was telling the story one time to somebody else a couple of years later, and he was saying there was an array where you had to shoot a piece of steel, and these two runners open up and come running towards you, and you had to shoot them from behind a barricade. And I didn't know any better, so I shot the steel and started running at the runners. And he said, I knew you were going to be something when he did that. And I said, I didn't know, But, I mean, I missed targets. I forgot to shoot targets. You could have knocked the smile off my face with the crowbar. Well, after that, it was real quick to figure out that getting good at any kind of competitive sport means you got to learn. You have to figure out where the information is, figure out how to simulate it, work it into everything, what's really important. And I started really becoming a student of the game, watching the faster shooters, looking for videos, doing all kinds of different things, and I ran across Matt Burkett's videos. At the time, he had only 5, and one of them was an IDPA, and at the end of it, he left his email address, and at this point, I was hook, line, and sinker into any kind of action pistol shooting game. At the time, the only one I knew was IDPA, so I emailed him and said, hey, I'm going to win a state match in a year. I was, being a little boastful, and never thinking he was ever going to, respond. Well, he responds with his cell phone number, and the guy, and I talked to him for an hour and a half. He didn't know who I was. It was amazing to me that somebody at his level of accomplishment would share that much of his personal time with a nobody, a complete total nobody, me. And it really set forth a mantra of paying it forward, helping others, because at the end of the day, we all want to preserve our gun rights. And one of the ways you can do that is through education, be it somebody who's never going to be a competitive shooter to somebody who really is interested in the game. Plus, it's fulfilling. It's really nice to be able to do that. So within the next year, I took a couple different training classes. I spent hours upon hours practicing. My rationale was I was going to the gym an hour and a half every day, 5 or 6 days a week. I just replaced it with dry fire. And the biggest thing I learned was you got to know what to do and how to do it correctly, or at least the best way to do it. You can make some minor variations along the way. And learning that first really saved a lot of time. But then I spent a lot of time watching people, trying to figure out why I was getting beat, how I was getting beat, and sure enough, within a year I hit master, and 6 months after that, I won my first state match, and since then, I think I've tallied up just over 65 or 67 state regional division wins. I've been pretty good with it and had a ton of fun. Met incredible people all over the world, and have played a bunch of the different games. So that's kind of the ins and outs of where I came from.
Yeah, it's great how, I mean, like when I took a class with you, and it's like you came with these paperworks, like printouts of like how you shot in the, stuff you shot in the dark, steel targets. I mean, so breaking down shooters who were beating you at the time, was there any technique you used to find out how they were beating you and how they were getting the time advantage over you?
Yeah. So the first thing I did was I bought a shot timer because somebody suggested to use one to set par times so that you could know when the buzzer went off the second time and know whether or not you beat it or didn't beat it. And it's no different than lifting weights. You increase the weight, you make it a little more difficult. You do the same thing with that thing. And then I got the idea of, well, can I get one of the safety officers or range officers running one of the faster shooters to use my timer? And I went back and wrote down all the splits and compared it to my own. And I realized I couldn't figure out where the heck they were beating the snot out of me. And it turned out every time they were moving from one position to another, they were killing me. So then I combined that with video and was looking at it and realized they weren't getting there any faster. They were just starting to shoot a lot sooner. And then I started looking at what they were doing in preparation to finishing their movement, why they were able to start shooting sooner. And it came down to some simple stuff that just wasn't intuitive, like pushing the gun out 2 steps before you finish moving. But you'd think you'd end up being a tuning fork with your arms kind of bouncing up and down if you start pushing out 2 steps ahead of time, but you don't. Little stuff. So that's kind of it, in terms of really watching other people, looking for information, just that kind of stuff.
There you go. Nikki, you had one you wanted to throw in for Morgan. What do you have?
Yeah. Morgan, I know during your introduction you said 65, 67 state and regional division. Is that IDPA only, or is that total?
Yeah, I've got, let's see on the wall, I've got one production and, believe it or not, one limited 10. Don't tell anybody. From USPSA, and let's see, I think one steel challenge thing from someplace.
So
that was a few years ago.
Overall, what is your total?
I think I have 67 division titles, and I have 2 boxes of second places. So the first couple of years, it was I would win one, I would finish second, third, or fourth in maybe 80% of them, of the ones I didn't win. The second year was kind of half and half, and then the third year was I won most of them and came in second occasionally. And after that, it was pretty much on a roll.
So worked
out pretty well.
Okay, out of those 67, which one means the most to you? When you won it, which one was like, yes, this is the one I've always worked for?
So there's 3, and let me show you. This guy right here, it's a little larger than a postage stamp, but not much. It's a 6th place marksman. It was the very first one I ever won. That meant a lot to me because I'd never won anything in any sports I'd ever played before that wasn't a part of a team or anything like that, and it was kind of like, wow, that's kind of cool. The next big one was a state match, North Carolina State. I won that, I think 16 months into shooting. And then after that, the big milestone for me was when in IDPA, accuracy is valued a lot more than speed compared to some of the other shooting sports. And I managed a high overall win and most accurate for the match. That was a pretty huge milestone to be able to hit those 2. And then the last one is the inaugural World Shoot, where I was able to be part of the U.S. team and finish second in the division.
Nice.
So sixth place marksman.
Yeah. Start somewhere.
There you go. Yeah, you got to start somewhere. And I mean, I got something laying up there, man. It's like a 11th place sharpshooter.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Well,
I was like, what?
You were mentioning the class that I taught that you're in. One of the first things I do is I hand out a printed result sheet from the first IDPA match I shot, and I think I finished 33rd out of 36 people. And then the very next thing I hand out is one of the stage results from 2 years later at the Indoor Nationals, and it's Rob Latham, Dave Savigny, Bob Vogel, Todd Jarrett, and then me. And you got to start somewhere. Everyone has to start somewhere, and the challenge for a lot of it mentally is believing that you're better than you really truly believe that you are at the current time. It's kind of like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. You've got to set attainable goals that are a stretch, but that even though you don't really think you're that good yet, you believe there's a chance you can hit it. And then before you know it, you're going to get to a level that a year before you had no belief whatsoever that you'd ever get there. And that was a story for me. I mean, for the first year of shooting, I was just trying to crack the top 10 of a local monthly match, and there were 3 guys consistently beating the snot out of me every time. It was the same 3 guys that would always finish 1, 2, 3. They would just shift around. And I was hoping one day I could hit the top 10, and I believed I could, and finally it did. And then my next goal is to win one of those monthly matches, and then the next goal is to win a class in a sanctioned match, and the next goal is to win the division. The next goal is to beat everybody in the match. You got to set goals that are a little bit of a stretch, but our goals that you can hit. You just got to kind of reach a little bit.
There you go. Yeah. And it's funny at that 11th place, I'm like, dude, they're still handing out things at 11th place. Save it, dude. Yeah. But whatever. It's still up there. It's funny. Yeah, the audio was a little bit cracky on that, but I think it cleared up there towards the end. I was able to make out everything he was saying though, but audio was a little cracky. So hopefully it doesn't happen moving forward. Steve, what do you got? You got anything off of this stuff? I mean, you shot a couple IDPA matches with Morgan and stuff.
Yeah, man. I any little bit of knowledge that these guys that we're fortunate enough to have on can spread around for us is just awesome. So, and I just kind of had the same realization of what he was mentioning as far as having that gun in position when you get into the spot you're moving to. Shooting outer limits actually at the Steel Nationals a couple weekends ago. Somehow I picked up on that right before that match, and I really made a concerted effort specifically on that stage, because it's the only stage with movement, to have that gun there, not way down here, when I stepped into that second box. It made a huge difference. So just little things like that are huge. That's why we do the show, and I can't emphasize enough how awesome just that one tip is. So thank you from the viewers and everyone.
I mean, it's
when you're looking at doing skills in the game. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, I was just gonna boost you up a little bit here, because I've shot tons of matches with you, and you always, and I picked up a lot of things. You always go to the match the day before, right? And I always try to, with me it's more of a money issue. Like, man, I don't want to go for it's an extra hotel night, but it's really beneficial to go there. You always see him with, like, sometimes I've seen him with a yellow pad, even like, like watching the stage and like picking out little things at the stage and really gaming the stage out. And he's always walking around saying hi to people, always giving advice. If he don't know you, there's always some advice he'll give. And it's funny, but he's still competitive, right? So he wants me to shoot really good. But then I remember that there was a match, I think it was Space Coast, late last year. He's like, shoot really good, but don't beat me. And I was like, well, that's the goal, right? Because I knew anytime Morgan's at a match like that, he's going to be 1 or 2, right? So if you're going to win overall, you got to go through Morgan. I'm like, well, that's the goal. He's like, well, he walks away and says, well, this stage you're about to shoot, I was like down 1. So he's like, take that, buddy, and shoot that stage.
No, come on, man. I never said that.
So I was like, gee, so I did pretty well on that stage, but I think I was 4 down. So I'm like, I still wasn't able to get. I would have had to pretty much clean that stage in order to beat at least the accuracy part of it.
Morgan's good at his mental game and messing up your mental game.
Yeah, right.
Now, at the end of the day, we've all seen a shooter on a stage where they have equipment failure. They have a round that doesn't feed, ammo doesn't work, the gun jams up, the drop magazine's on. Something happens, a magazine base pad falls off, whatever. Nobody likes to see that. You want to win because your talent and your training has put you to the point of being better than somebody else, and you're able to execute under stress that way. I don't want to beat somebody because they came up with some little, silly trick. When shooting in the Super Squad at various matches, we typically are sharing information for that specific reason, because if you don't, somebody else somewhere else is going to notice something that you didn't pick up on, and if you don't share it with the larger group, then they're not going to share it with you later on. It's about the camaraderie. I mean, it's just a really cool group of people that play these games and are sharing that kind of stuff. So for me, I really enjoy it when I watch friends of mine that I saw when they were first starting out getting really good. I don't know, it's rewarding for me. I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, right on. Morgan, we're having a little bit of audio issues. I'm going to say go into your bandwidth setting and just bring it down a notch. Let's try that. Right next to the setting tab in the Google chat. Bring that one down a notch, and let's see if you clear up a little bit. Jen,
he doesn't want to say what I put. I put Morgan just needs to slow talking down because he's talking too fast. His mic can't pick up his words quick enough.
Yeah, it's true. It's like when he talks slower, it comes in clear, and then when he's talking fast, it kind of gets all ruffled up.
Shoots fast, talks fast.
Right on. Jen, you have a Q&A that came in on the Facebook. You want to hit it?
Yeah. Eric Swisher says, "Happy birthday, Morgan." And
thank you.
It is Morgan's birthday on the show on his birthday.
Right.
What's up?
Oh, man, you should be out partying.
Yeah, we'll be.
Yeah, Morgan.
And you're spending it with us. Very kind of you.
Very nice.
But he wants to know, he heard you're shooting a CZ now, and he wants to know how you like it so far, and what do you like or dislike versus the STI?
So anytime you're shooting a gun that has you making a fundamental platform change, that's something that just takes time to get used to. You need to basically relearn how to shoot. I enjoy that kind of a challenge, not because I want to, take my skills back, but at the end of the day, when you start with a new platform, you're forced to look at stuff that you haven't paid attention to in a long time, and therefore, by the end of it, you end up becoming a better shooter. For IDPA, I'm shooting a CZ compact, a subcompact technically. We've got a single action trigger in it. It's a flat trigger, and so it acts a little bit like the 2011. It's got a magwell on the bottom and so forth. But for USPSA, I'm shooting an SP01 Shadow. That's got the long first trigger pull that I'm really having to get used to. And anytime you make a change, be it to your grip on your current gun or changing a platform or whatever it might be, it takes a little bit of time to really help filter in how to get used to that. Pulling trigger earlier, getting on it, that kind of thing. I really enjoy both of the guns. My reasoning for making the platform change was so that I could use one platform for multiple different sports, because I was kind of hampered by a 2011 chambered to 9mm for using it for USPSA. I'd have to switch to major and either shoot limited or something like that, and I really wanted to stay with production. So the CZ platform wasn't the first one I tried. I put 4,000 to 5,000 rounds through an M&P. I spent about a month and a half with a Glock 34, and I also spent some time, probably about 6 weeks, with a XDM 5 1/4. There's nothing wrong with any of those guns. In fact, I started with those. It just turns out I shoot the CZ better than those other four, and I enjoy shooting them a little bit more. So if you're looking at a platform gun change, for whatever the reason it might be, and there is a reason to consider looking at your equipment at the end of any one year. There are advances in equipment, new guns showing up like the SIG 320. It makes a lot of sense to do some tests, because you may find that there's something else out there that you can shoot better. And if that's the case, great. Now you have a gun you shoot better. If it's not, then you have regained your confidence in what you already are shooting. So it's important to kind of do that trial and evaluation on your equipment, whether it's a gun, a different pair of glasses, Solomon shoes if you haven't tried them, a variety of different pieces of equipment, because it's free. Now, I don't mean free in terms of someone's going to hand it to you, but it's a game changer in terms of your score in matches. You can work on your technical skill. You're going to get out to a certain point, but if you're walking around with 10-pound ankle weights, you're always going to be slower than if you took them off. Well, equipment to me is no different than exactly that. It's a freebie that you can bring to the match and actually perform better if you pay attention to it and look around to see what's new.
Right. So a tip that I picked up was if your glasses have a red tint in them, the red fiber on the front sight will glow like twice the amount than it usually does with clear. And I didn't know that, and that's kind of one of those things that, like, you kind of hit yourself in the head, like, this is so easy. Like, why didn't I just test different, shades of eyewear or something like that and figure this out? It's something kind of simple, and it makes a big difference. If you like that type of glow, now some people probably don't, and they like it a little dimmer, then, that's something trial and error. You figure out yourself. How's it going on?
Can you guys hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, cool. So when I look at what a shooter brings to a match, there are 3 components that I tell everybody that make up how that person's going to perform. One is their technical skill, and that's the one thing everybody thinks about. The second is your equipment, and everybody's aware of their equipment. They just may not pay as much attention to the little nuances that they can. And the last one is your mental mind game. Being able to perform under pressure and still have the result come out to whatever your technical skill is when you're just practicing. Few people pay attention to that last one. Not enough attention is paid to the middle one, because everyone sees people with ammo that gets ejected because there's a light primer strike or it doesn't feed correctly during a sanctioned match. So looking at a platform change, everybody sees, and I'm not advocating being a gun of the month shooter, because we all know shooters that every time you see them, they're shooting a different gun. But do take a look at your equipment, from the gun to the base pads to the mag carriers to your belt to your hat that you're wearing. Does it fit over the ears and allow your space for your headgear to weld on good? Does it have a little button on top that's pushing down on your head? Just little stuff. What are you eating during a match? All of that kind of stuff that's intangible compared to the tangible shooting skills. It all kind of comes into play.
There you go. I mean, we have one here right off of that from DJ here. What will make a green fiber glow more? Yellow lenses. My eyes attract to green better than red.
Yeah, there are green and yellow. You can buy straight up yellow, and there's also green. Typical green looks just like that. I don't know if you could see it. But you want the yellow or a green or yellow hue. I don't know if blue works. I've heard different things. Just depends on where it sits in the color wheel. But for red fiber, you want anything with a red hue. So it could be brown, orange, red, pink. It really doesn't matter. So yellow for green.
There you go.
And the simple way to do it is just go try it out. I mean, show up at the range with a pair. If you don't own them, borrow somebody's and just look at it and see if you can see it.
Right on. There you go, DJ. Moneypenny here. During your quest, did you do more? What was it? Did you do more dry fire than live fire schedules? What did your dry fire and live fire schedules look like when you were on the quest to accomplish master or win nationals or whatever that is? You were obviously shooting a lot of matches. So what do you have there?
Yeah. So the match shooting live fire is, for the most part, is a way for me to confirm and validate what I've been practicing in dry fire. And there's some things you cannot do in dry fire, like get recoil, feel the recoil when you're transitioning from one target to another. Sanctioned matches is a place for me to validate both my live fire practice and training along with my dry fire, but it's really a place for me to hit my mental game. And that's why I shoot a lot of monthly matches, is to work on the mental game, make sure the speed accuracy balance is there. But for every round that comes out of my gun, I'm probably pulling the trigger another 12 times. And that was higher when I first started because I needed to build in that quote-unquote muscle memory just to, keep everything where it needed to be, work on the speed, all the different techniques that I don't have an unlimited budget. I don't now, and I definitely didn't when I first started. So economically, it makes a lot more sense to spend a bit more time dry firing. There's certain things that you do a lot of in a match. So you do a lot of transitions. There's other things that take a lot of time each time you do it. So drawing the gun, reloading the gun, moving from one spot to another, it takes a lot more time than transitioning the gun from one target to another. All of those things, those core skills, are things that you're going to want to dry fire with an appropriate amount of frequency of how much you do it in a match, but also weighted by what your opportunity for improvement is. And by that I mean, if I am very poor at my draw, but in the same poor at my transition, and the amount of time that I can spend dry firing to get better at it, to improve those two skills, I'll save more time on my draw than I would on my transition, just because of the length of time it takes to do in those things. But I do a lot more transitions in a match, so if you multiply those two things, how much I can improve by times the number of times I do it in a match, that's what I prioritize for what I should be training and working on. So I'm a little bit long-winded on it, but going back to dry fire, there's some skills I'm always going to dry fire pretty much every time I pick up the gun, just to keep myself real fresh and crisp on it, because I just do it a ton of times during a match. But then there's a lot of stuff that, does it make sense to practice prone every time you go in live fire? No, because you don't do a lot of prone shooting except for in sanction matches. And even there, it might just be part of one stage out of 12 or 15 stages. But at some point, you need to get the skill down and figure out how you can do it well and effectively. And dry fire is a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, right on. I wanted to hit on something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I talk to Steve about this all the time, is major gear malfunctions ruining kind of your match in a sense like that. And then recently I shot a local match, and I had, it was like a 6-stage match. I had like 3 or 4 malfunctions. And I'm like, that can't happen. So we come back, we tear the gun apart, we kind of, take a look at some things, change some basic things out that I already had in the parts kit, and kind of work on there. I even kind of went crazy. Good thing Glocks are a little bit affordable, and you could, with all the parts, you could kind of just change everything for like a low cost. So I changed extractors, firing pin springs. I even changed the whole trigger because I had a whole nother trigger in there. So swapped it all out, and then at that Florida State match, I had a bomb like double feed jam, and then that's when I changed the extractor after that. There's a double feed jam, so I'm tap rack, and then I stripped the magazine. By then, and I was moving too. It was one of those where you had to take three targets on the move, and I had that, and I'm like, man, I just want to. Can I get through a match with no gear? So I can. It's fine if I just want a straight up, like, how, with no gear malfunctions, like where am I placing here, so I can get a good judgment and see where I can improve at. But that gear malfunction almost pretty much, it was hard to recover after that.
Yeah, mentally it's very difficult to recover after something like that, primarily because it's preventable. At least in your mind it is. So before I go to a major match, I'm going to inspect all my gear. I'm going to get out the magnifying glass and look at stuff. There's things you just can't see easily with the naked eye. With my STIs, the single weakest failure point for that gun performing in a match where you have to go to slide lock, so IDPA matches typically, is the slide locking to the rear, and that's driven by the spring of the alignment for the follower, the spring in the magazine, how the slide stop is fit, and everything else, and then obviously a lot of other stuff too. But every 6 months, I swap all the springs out. I get rid of them. I just throw them away. And then there's other things you do too, and you start talking to people, and you learn, hey, that's a good idea. One of them is I take 126 millimeter mags, I buy 140 millimeter springs for them, I cut off 2 coils. So it's got a little bit more. It's like the plus 10, plus 15s that you can buy for other guns that they just don't make for some of the stuff that I've shot. So your equipment, it's a free chance to make sure it works. But what you don't want to do is do it the day before or 2 days before you go to a match. Do it 2 weeks before you go to a match. If you have any issues, you can correct it. Few people know that when I went to the IDPA World Shoot in 2011, when they had their inaugural World Shoot, my slide stop fractured. The rod was still in the gun, and the slide stop snapped right off. And here I am 2 weeks beforehand, and I just done my equipment review, and I didn't see that, but I had plenty of time to fix it beforehand. And when you have something that happens just a day or two before you go to a sanctioned match, in the back of your head, you're wondering, hey, is this going to work? Is it going to work? Mm-hmm. Or if you've got light primer strikes, or if you have this, or if you have that, in the back of your head, you're just I hope my stuff works. Well, the last thing you want is that. You actually want to have it as a confidence point rather than a weakness that's kind of drilling in the back of your head.
Yeah,
so that kind of stuff you need to just really pay attention to.
And the thing with the microfine glass was that when I replaced the extractor, from just looking at it, it just looks kind of normal, like the new one I put in it in. But actually, there was some small fine wear on it at the most key point of the extractor where it extracts around. And I haven't, ever since then, I haven't had any problems. So I'm hoping that I got it down to the extractor. I mean, this is the same gun that I've had for what now, 6 years, Steve? Steve said go with a 34, and I went with it, and only gun I've ever shot.
Yeah, you've put some miles on that bad boy for sure.
Yeah, so I figured it's a good time to probably swap that out. Jen, you have a question you got coming in live?
Hey
Yeah.
Jen, before you hit that one, let me just add one other thing. A lot of people have a backup gun, but they never shoot it. They just have it. And there's a story I read about some guy, an open shooter that came in from France, I think it was, to shoot the IPSC Worlds when they had it in Florida this past time. And his primary didn't make it, didn't arrive. And he had his backup, but it had all kinds of malfunctions. So I shoot my backup in matches. You got to have that confidence in not just your primary and what's going on, but whatever you have as a backup. Jen, what was your question?
Justin Winstead asks, he wants you to explain what your thought process is while you're going through a course of fire. What's going through your head?
Zeros, alphas, that's it. No, what I try to do before I get to a stage, having done all the research before I show up at the match, the day before, the week before, whatever it is, I already know what I have to do. I've already memorized it. You know, it's all in my head. Is I want to relax. I want to take my breathing down. I want to take the match stress out. I want to focus on just what I need to do. So while I'm shooting, I'm almost third person. I'm watching myself shoot. I'm not thinking about anything. I caught myself in a match about a year and a half after I started, wondering what I was going to have for lunch when I was moving from one spot to another. I had to shake myself out of it to say, hey, pay attention to the targets. But you see guys who talk while they're shooting, or they sometimes cuss, oh shit, you know, and something goes wrong. You just want to be completely emotionless. You're a robot in a sense of the way, from a mental perspective. You just want to set up to being able to completely relax, and that way you can take all the stress out and shoot as close to your technical skill as possible. One of the things I advocate is there's really like 3 components to when I'm at a sanctioned match that I go through, or any match for that matter, when I go through before when I enter the bay to when I leave the bay. When I show up in the bay, it's my pre-shoot routine time. It's my chance to walk the course of fire if I haven't been able to, and see the actual shooting positions and determine very quickly, if I can, how I'm going to shoot that stage. And from then I spend a lot of time visualizing it, feeling myself coming into the positions, performing the reloads, angling. While some people at a match are walking around looking at stages and saying, oh, I shoot 3 targets from here, 2 from there, I'm thinking about, well, this one is taller than these other 2, and these other 2 are right next to each other, so there's a longer transition and a foot movement at the same time. And what I do is I break stages down to modules in my head, because sometimes if you've got a 32-round USPSA stage, it's hard to memorize all that stuff, because you start thinking, okay, I shoot this one, this one, this one, and then you sort of forget your place and you have to start over again. Well, if you break it down to modules separated by some event, like moving from one position to another, I move from here to here, I shoot these 8, move from here to here, I shoot these 6. And I go over those modules independently, or an IDPA might be a reload point. I memorize the modules each, and then I put them together. And so when I'm in the hole, I stop thinking about the whole stage, and I only think about the first array, or that first module. When I'm on deck, I'm thinking about the first target, where I'm going to shoot it. I'm staring at a single pacer. There's a funny story. Nikki, you're going to ask for something funny. There's 2 of them really. And one of them's not that funny, but I thought it was. I was the on-deck shooter. The active shooter had gone downrange, and so I immediately stepped into that position. And they had to shoot. You started with a downloaded mag, so you had to do a reload right where you're standing there. And I'm so intently focused on the first target that this guy that had finished shooting, he's like standing 6 inches from my face. And I'm like finally I broke myself out of it and, gave him the, what do you want? And he said, sir, you're standing in my magazine. I looked down, sure enough, it was on my right foot. Yeah, and sometimes you get into that mindset. So Justin, that's really the focus of it. While you're shooting, is so you have the pre-shoot routine that I just mentioned. The shoot routine is you shoot. The worst thing you can do is make a problem worse. So if you have an issue, what I don't want to do is try to make up the time. And when you're under stress, your brain works a little faster, it takes in more sensory inputs, but it feels like things are slowing down, so you speed up to whatever you think that speed should be, and it turns out you're actually going faster and you don't realize it. So when something bad happens, I don't try to make it up. I try to stay calm and actually back off just a hair. And it turns out I end up staying at the right shooting speed the whole time. And then when you're done, most people, when you think about a dragster, that parachute comes out the back and they only run for 3-5 seconds and stuff like that. When you're done, you've got this adrenaline dump, you've got all this high-level concentration energy that's in your head that you've got to stop having that exit your body because you only have so much in your tank that can last you because you get emotionally depleted by the end of a match. I need to turn that off. And so one of the things I do is I walk around with the scorers to make sure that they're scoring the targets correctly and keying them in correctly. As an SO and RO, IDPA and USPSA, I've made mistakes. There's targets where you require 2 shots apiece. I look at 3 hits because they did a makeup, and I count all the points down or whatever the score is, and I get it wrong. So you got to walk around and make sure that's done right. And as soon as that's done, go back to your range bag, do something monotonous. Like I unload all my magazines and load them back up again. That way I can just focus on absolutely nothing, get my breathing correct, completely relax. And then, that's my post-shoot routine to try and get kind of calm down again and start thinking about the next stage. And one of the common questions I get is, so how do you keep from, if you have a bad stage, how do you screw up the next 3? Or how do you not screw up the next 3 stages? I have a bad first stage every time I shoot a sanctioned match. The next 3 suck, and after that, everything's going well. Well, one of the tricks I use is I had a friend of mine tell me, hey, just tell yourself that stage was the best stage you ever shot. Well, I can't lie to myself. I know I screwed the pooch. It just went hell in a handbasket. There's nothing I can do to fix it. I can't get out of my head. So what I try to do is focus on what I do well in that stage. I might have screwed up everything, might have had really poor hits, but I might have fantastic draw and a tremendous reload at here and a great reload over there, or I might have really come into that position great. So I'm going to choose to focus on the 1 or 2 things I did really well in that stage, and then immediately start thinking about the next stage I have to shoot. This is the kicker. Everybody that hears that says, okay, yeah, I'll start doing it, I'll try doing that. But what they forget is you need to do that regardless of what kind of a stage you just shot, if it's good or bad, because if you don't exit all of the thoughts in your head about when you shoot a really good stage, you're never going to be able to get them out of your head when you shoot a poor stage. So my post-shoot routine after I validate the scoring is exactly the same regardless of how well I did in that stage. And for me, the measure of doing that well was the first time I had an absolutely horrible stage, and the very next stage I won it for the match. That's when you've got your mental game set for how you handle one stage to the next. Good question, Justin.
Yeah, Justin, give us a couple more. I know Justin's a good friend of yours and is trained also. So a lot of people have trained with Morgan. We got to get some classes. So if someone wants to take a class with you, where can they get a hold of you? What's a good spot to get
shoot me an email, morgan_allen@yahoo.com.
There you go. So bring them down to your club, and he puts on a fantastic course. We're going to jump into the lightning round. Facebook. We're going to jump into the lightning round here, and then Steve's got one lined up for Morgan here. Where's the lightning round? There it is. Just kind of silly questions, Morgan. One or the other deal. If you're only going to compete in one or watch one, is it MMA or boxing?
Oh, MMA.
Yeah, for sure. I agree there. Boxing, man, has it gotten boring nowadays. Battle belt or tactical vest?
Oh, it's got to be the vest.
Vest, really? All right, there you go. Tactical vest wins that one. If you're in a restaurant, white or wheat bread, what are you ordering?
Wheat bread.
Wheat bread. Oh, man, it's all right.
Unless it's pizza.
Yeah. Jack Daniels or Jameson? if that's all they had at the bar.
Well, I'm a little partial to Captain Morgan's,
I
so
like
neither.
Captain. I like Captain. It's really good.
I wonder why. Morgan, Captain Morgan.
Yeah. There you go. Captain Morgan's private stock. I'm a big fan of the private stock, Captain Morgan. I like it a lot. All right. Let's see. In-N-Out Burger or Five Guys?
Oh, Five Guys.
Five Guys wins this one. Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris getting into a fight in their prime. Who do you have winning?
Boy, that's a tough one. Probably Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that one. So the attachment systems. We got TechLock ELS. We got the TMMS, and the new one Comtech came out with recently was they called it the PLM. What is your preferred attachment system?
TechLock, Blade Tech.
There you go, TechLock. Yeah, it's the go-to. I'm gonna have to agree there. Oreos or Chips Ahoy?
Oreos for sure, with milk.
Oreos with milk. There's kind of a that'll do it for the lightning round. But there's kind of a thing I think that I read on Facebook there that Oreos are moving to Mexico. There's like 1,000 jobs, American jobs being lost, and they're moving to Mexico because it's more affordable.
Oh, maybe Chips Ahoy will be y'all's answer moving forward.
Chips Ahoy. So I don't know how true that is. You can't always depend on Facebook for your news.
No, really? You can't put magazines in the bottom of revolvers? I thought you could.
No, you can't. But it was on the sidebar, the trending area, so I think it's official. Steve, what do you have? You have a question lined up?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on Morgan's thoughts on the subject of sponsorship. He and I actually share a pretty good sponsor, czforum.com, and I know he's got several others as well. So for the newer shooters or for established shooters that are looking to gain sponsorship, what kind of realistic expectations and what should they be shooting for? What's a good path for them to take?
So right off the bat, the first thing that I get approached and asked that, not all the time, but some level of frequency. And my first question to them is, what do you think a sponsor is looking for when they help a shooter so that they can go out and compete in matches and so forth? What do they want? And the first thing I get 99% of the time is, well, somebody wins a lot of matches. And that's wrong. A sponsored shooter is a marketing agent, is a representative of a company's brand, their products, and so forth. So having a level-set understanding of that is really important right off the bat, because if you approach sponsors and say, hey, I won 5 matches, I think you should give me some free stuff, blah, 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 they're kind of missing the boat. So I would advise people to look at companies that they would use their products, never sponsorship or seek a sponsorship for something that you don't actively use and wouldn't support, and find out things about that company in that industry. Learn where it is that you could be of assistance to them to help sell their product, because at the end of the day, that's what your role is as a sponsored shooter for a company, is to help represent that company. And then the other thing is really around, I think that kind of sums it up, is really to make sure you understand that it's about marketing and representing that company.
There you go. Well said, Jen. You had a couple on Facebook you wanted to hit.
Let's see. Someone asked, how often do you recommend taking a break from shooting? Thought that was an interesting question.
Yeah, Morgan.
Me taking a break from shooting?
That's kind of what I thought. I was like, break?
No. It does bring up a good topic. Scott Warren, I'm friends with him, and I've actually taken a class from him way back when I first started. And he said that every year he stops shooting. I don't recall exactly how much time he spends not shooting, but he puts the gun down, puts it in a bag, and I kind of said, why? It was crazy to me to think about that. Well, what it does is it allows you to, when you pick it back up again, to restart that enthusiasm, that love again, to really drive back into it. It's no different than changing gun platforms where you have to kind of relearn things. You need that's why a lot of the major sports have off seasons. It's not so, part of it's so people can avoid injury and so on and so forth, and extend their careers and whatnot. But you need to be able to reinvigorate yourself, and putting something down for a while is not a bad idea. Most good shooters I know do that in the off season. They spend the time doing other things, cross-train with other sports. They re-examine all their equipment. They make changes in equipment, technique, and things like that. So having a downtime is an important component.
Yeah, we always hear some shooters in the off season, they'll kind of just put down the gun, kind of lay off the whole dry fire, live fire training, and some people just say, no, I'm always working hard, always trying to improve my game. So there is a good topic there. I mean, I just can't see myself not shooting for, it's what I enjoy doing. Whether if I'm just going to an indoor range, and shooting a bunch of guns or some camaraderie with some buddies locally here, I just can't see myself just letting it completely go for even a month.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who is an IPSC Worlds winner once told me, I asked him, I said, do you ever put the gun down? What's the longest you ever put the gun down? Because the guy's got the gun in his hands all the time. And he said, yeah, once I got married, went on honeymoon for 2 weeks, didn't touch the gun, came back, and the very next match I shot was the best match I'd ever shot in my life.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess it's one of those things you got to play around with. Like you're saying, it's like the gear evaluation stuff. You got to play around. Maybe that works for you. I don't know. I just can't I can't put it down for 2. 2 weeks isn't that bad though. 2 weeks isn't that bad.
I like what you said, Anthony, about the camaraderie, about going, just not putting the gun down and just going to matches so you can hang out with people. I don't have that many friends, so I don't take an off season because that's the only time I actually get to hang out with people I like.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we always got buddies. Well, I got a lot of buddies who don't shoot competitively. They're just guys that like to buy guns and just go to the range and shoot them and not worrying out, shoot competitively. So those always get those guys that to hang out with. Let's move into the discount corner here, and then we got a lot of questions coming in from DJ, and I know Steve probably has another one locked in here. So discount corner, we have shop.tacticalshit.com. TSM10 saves you 10% off your entire order over at tacticalshit.com. Fort Mill munitions. So if you handgun ammunitions, they're loaded to minor power factor. So if you're kind of one of those guys that don't reload, but really don't want to shoot factory ammo because your factory ammo is usually a little bit hotter, they have what you need at a good minor power factor. That's TSM10 saves you 5% off anything at teamfmm.com or fortmillmunitions.com. What do I have? DeweyRods.com, TSM15. They just came out with their travel size field kits. So no need to lug around a bunch of Dewey rods and a bunch of patches and stuff like that. This is a compact kit. Has everything you need for your cleaning needs and field stripping needs. What do we got? Terran Tactical Innovations, TSM10. Someone actually called me, said they want a Benelli. I got to do 10% off of Benelli, so that was a big purchase. But at least 10% off of like $2,500. That's a pretty decent savings. Pretty sweet deal. So TSM10 at TerranTacticalInnovations.com. If you want to pick up base pads, they have them over there as well. I have Tactical TSM10 for 10% off anything at umtactical.com. So they got their, I know they were popular. A lot of people were doing videos before they were actually released, which is their Rage TCS compensator for the AR-15. If you want one of those, TSM10 saves you 10% off of that. Jen, you have any? I have Carbon Arms too. I think, Jen, you have that code though.
Did you do Carbon Arms?
No, I can.
Carbon Arms is TSM10 too, right?
Yeah, Carbon Arms. I was going to let you do a few.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Samson Manufacturing is 10% off with TSM10 as the code, and it's at samson-mfg.com. You can get all your AR-15 needs. Scope mounts are great. Very excellent. And then Carbon Arms is also TSM10, and I just did my Carbon Arms video today. I've got to edit it and get it turned in, but awesome group of people there, and I love their shotgun caddies. And the Jihad vest.
The Jihad vest. Indeed, indeed. Nikki, you have any discount corner? Steve, I don't know if you have, kind of on the fly.
I do, but I don't give it out publicly. I would love to talk to anybody who's interested in putting a Criterion barrel in their rifle build. So if you are interested in getting a discount on a Criterion barrel, please message me or message Heath because he probably knows more than I do. But we would love to help you get a discount on a barrel if you're interested in Criterion barrels.
There you go.
I'm gonna throw one out for my buddy Dusty since he's not here. Dustin Pluth. He's always helping people out with the CompTac discount codes, and his code is Dustin1. So if you need 10% off and you like compact products, go over there. CompTac rather. Sorry.
Compact, yeah, CompTac products. Dustin1 for what is it? 10%?
Yep.
So it's a good deal. Yeah. Let's see, and then I got just Dissonant Arms. So if you mention the TSM, if you want one of those Vepr 12s, I say US shotguns, you want it all decked out for 3-gun, Dissonant Arms is the way to go. If you mention the Shooter's Mindset and sent you, they might give you a sticker, pat on the back, maybe a discount code, I don't know, but tell them, help us out. TSM 10 sent you, all right, to get a Vepr. Let's see, and then that's it. We have here from DJ, we were talking a little bit about Veprs and 3-gun stuff. DJ, are you coming to 3-gun for Morgan?
Oh, no. Well, I go to matches with my friends.
Yeah.
Now, it's one of these things where if I won the lottery, sure, all day long.
I was going to say, let me answer that one for Morgan. Morgan would love to shoot 3-gun, except he only goes like balls to the wall, 110%, and if he doesn't feel he could give 110%, he can't do it. Like if he can't commit everything, he can't do it.
Yeah, and it's not about winning. It's about being able to feel like you're being competent. So imagine if you're trying to fix one thing like a draw, and you're working on your draw, and you do it one way for when you're drawing and moving to your right, and you do it a different way when you're drawing and moving to your left. I'm just making this up. That's 2 different draws you have to work on. But if you draw the same way every time, regardless if you move right or left, then you only have to work on one thing and spend half the amount of time doing it. So if I spend the amount of time I'm spending now on training, but divide it up between shotgun, rifle, 3-gun pistol, USPSA, IDPA, Steel Challenge, Pro-Am, then that's going to dilute a little bit my ability to get as good as I want to be at some of the stuff. I absolutely love the game, and I think it looks like a blast. I've shot a couple of them. It's a ton of fun, but right now at this moment, I don't have any active plans.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of the pistol shooters too. It was like, I think it was Steve Anderson or it might have been Max. I think it was Max Michel. And we asked him a 3-gun question too, and he's like, dude, if I'm not doing 110% in 3-gun, I'm not gonna. If it's not 100, if it's not balls to the wall, I'm not gonna go in it. And that was his take on it also. So it seems like that's kind of the trend when it comes to successful pistol shooters.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a logistical thing too. I mean, just look at it practically. To get to 3-gun matches, you're traveling quite a distance. It's a lot more involved in travel when you're getting on a plane with everything versus a pistol. So there's the ability to. I love to shoot, and if 3-gun was the only game out there, I'd be all over it. It's easier for me to get to a lot more pistol matches and travel more and shoot more than it is to do 3-gun matches right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The whole shipping the ammo, getting the 3-gun case, trying to make weight with all 3 guns in one case, it's all, extra pain in the ass there for sure. We had one here from DJ, IDPA classifiers. What are your thoughts on whether IDPA classifiers truly show shooters' ability to shoot stages versus, say, using mini stages to determine the shooter's ability?
Yeah, the IDPA classifier is not representative of what you're going to be doing in a sanctioned match. It's just a requisite skill set test of various skills that you're going to be doing. I mean, most IDPA matches don't have roughly a third of the shots at 20 yards from behind a barricade. They're typically moving around at targets that are a bit shorter in distance. So you got to set up something that you can use to measure everybody in order to set them into unique, distinct classifications, and that just happens to be the way it is. When you look at USPSA, it's not a lot different. There are very few large field courses in USPSA classifiers, and there's a large number of multi-string Virginia count stages where you're transitioning from freestyle after doing a mandatory reload and shooting offhand. Well, you don't have that many stages like that in any kind of a sanctioned or monthly match in USPSA. It's just a measurement system. Could they change it? Sure. You know, you could pretty much do anything, but there are going to be some longer shots, so it is a valid thing to key in. You know, everything is open for improvement when you start looking at it, but it's not. And having said all that, do I practice the classifier? No, but I do shoot it any chance I can because you're always going to wind up with a standard stage in a sanctioned match. Your ability, you know, at the Space Coast Challenge, they had freestyle shots at 35 yards, or 2 targets hugging a non-threat. You need to be able to do the harder stuff that you're just standing there, and it's not a scenario-based stage. So there is value in becoming good at a classifier, but not for the sake of the classifier itself, but for the skills that are involved in it.
Yeah, I agree with the classifier stuff. And Carolina Cup was also a great match. It was a match where they put in one of those standard stages. I remember there was one. Support hand only, you had to do 5 headshots. And watching other shooters in my squad, man, that was a make or break. That's where the shooters pulled away, in a sense, where the ones that were able to hit those headshots, support hand only. And that's a stage where I really started to work on my support hand only shooting after that. I remember that.
For one thing for sure, it'll certainly uncover your skill deficiencies. But what I tell people is when you're shooting a standard stage in IDPA, that is not a stage where you're going to win the match. That is a stage where you can potentially give it away. So my goal there is to shoot it cleanly and shoot it well. You know, you look at the top shooters in the world that are playing the game. Those guys that are winning stages, if there's 15 stages and Vogel or somebody wins 4 or 5 of them, you may not see the standard stage being one of them. You're going to see others. So. You know, there's value in being good at it because you're going to see that stuff in a sanctioned match, but it's not one that I try to win by any means, and it's not one I'm trying to survive. I want to be very competent, very good at it, but depending on the risk level of it, where they're hugging non-threats around stuff for shooting support hand only or taking headshots like you were talking about, you know, you got to weigh that appropriately when you shoot it.
Boom, Steve, you got a good one that we've talked about here. Stirred up a little bit of controversy.
Definitely. Rolling off what you were talking about with the IDPA in general, there's quite a bit of talk about them moving to points down equaling a full second as opposed to 1/2 of a second. That's going to change the game pretty drastically. Obviously, poor accuracy is going to really hurt you. Where do you stand on that, and do you think that it's something that will affect a lot of shooters? Do you think people will gravitate away from the sport, so on and so forth?
Well, unless there's a competing sport to replace a void left by IDPA distancing itself from the style of action pistol shooting that USPSA represents, or if it is something that really happens, I don't see a lot of change. I don't see a lot of people migrating away. It is just it's just a change in how the scoring is done, and people will respond accordingly. Years ago, I think Vogel had just won the indoor nationals, and that was I think his second nationals. He won the outdoor the year before. Crimson Trace sponsored a post indoor nationals invitational only night shoot where you had to use the laser on the gun. I think it was. I don't recall because I didn't get to see the shooters compete, but there were 10 of them. 10 people that competed, and one of those was the winner of the indoor nationals. It happened to be Vogel that year. Well, every year, but. There they scored, I believe they scored down 1 as a quarter second, and down 3 or down 3 was a half second, and people shot a lot faster. This is going to force people to slow down and value the points a little bit more. There is one mitigating factor. At the top of the game, people have said the 1 second of points really not going to make that much of a difference, and I would agree to some extent. Most of those shooters are shooting at the right speed accuracy balance. In a 100-person match, I tend to see only 4 or 5 people shoot the right ratio of points down to minimum shots required in a match, which is usually 10 to 20%, somewhere in the 12-15% range is a pivot point. You shoot faster than that, you actually would have gotten a better score by slowing down. Well, those percentages will change. This will force people to slow down a little bit more and shoot a little bit more accurately. At the top of the game, they're already doing that. if you look at USPSA and hit any of the top 16 at nationals and look at their percentage points, they're at 90 plus. Those guys are already doing that. Now, the one mitigating factor is if you substantially increase the difficulty level of the shots, make them a lot more moving at more distance, shooting on the move, hard cover, awkward positions, very tight shots. If you layer that in along with increased penalty for points down, then you're going to see a pretty big swing. What it's going to do, if you go to a match that has a lot of close targets, nothing moving, everything's very easy, all of the shooting scores, the finishing scores are very tight. If you go to a match that's very difficult, they spread apart. Well, there's no difference between those two scenarios when you look at a very easy match where there's not a lot of points down, therefore penalty time added to your score, versus a very difficult match where there's a lot of penalty time because people end up with a lot of points down. Then if you take one match and have it as a half second per point down versus 1 full second per point down, it really doesn't matter to me either way, and I don't see a large number of folks migrating away from the sport as a result of that, unless another game were to step into that space.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've played a lot of the USPSA game, and I always kind of gravitate back to IDPA. I mean, I know a lot. The sport. You got people that say, "Oh, you only shoot 30 rounds, and you're out there for 8 hours." There's those type of people, but the props that you use, and there is more of a real life kind of deal behind it. Is a game, but it's totally different from USPSA in a way. So I kind of like the props and the positions that you put inside cars, yada yada. I mean, to me, it makes the game a lot of fun. But I don't know, when this 1 second thing came out, I mean, there was a lot of talk about it, saying that the founders and they just don't want to get beat by the faster, quicker young kids, and so they're doing this rule change for that. I don't know the way I stand on it. I didn't like it initially when I first heard it. Steve, where you at?
I mean. Hey, Steve, before you hop in, I want to mention one other thing, too, and that is over the last 6 months, all of the sanctioned matches, I think I've shot 4, have also increased the level of difficulty. When we went to the Indoor Nationals, I showed up on Friday, shot Saturday. By the time I arrived, all the Thursday shooters, so a third of the match had shot, plus all the SOs that were working the match had shot, the lowest points down of anybody was 106. So, you look at difficulty level increases as well. Steve, what were you going to say?
Well, going off of what he asked me specifically about, as far as people shooting a match and having to slow down to be more accurate, and the younger guys feeling like that it was changed specifically so that the older guys could, have a sport that they were competitive at. I mean, those younger guys have just as much ability and right to try and be more accurate, or be accurate enough to still win the other matches, to win the IDPA match with that type of a point scoring system in place. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for anybody to say that. I think personally the people that are probably saying things like that are the type that just want to try and go as fast as they can. And, there's some divisions set up in USPSA where I know that if you shoot production in USPSA, you better be shooting alphas, because if you're not going to be near the top. Whereas some of the other divisions, you can really not be as accurate, and the speed kind of makes up for that, and it's okay. That's how that game is played. I don't have anything against that, but to sit there and make a statement like, slower, fatter, older, whatever, people need to play IDPA and have the rules in their favor because they can't play USPSA is just ridiculous. I mean, it's a different sport, so you should shoot what you like, man. I see all this bashing of each other's sports, and I like all of them. I think it's stupid to bash anything.
Yeah, definitely like them all. Nikki, you had something come up?
Yes, Morgan, what was your aha moment? It all clicked. It all just finally fell into place.
That question sounds very familiar. For me, it was when I realized how to see faster while shooting and driving the gun off of transitions from one target to the next. That was a really big thing for me. I looked at stuff very differently after that. When I realized that as you're bringing the gun up off of recoil and you have the sight confirmation when the shot breaks right then and there. In your head, you just know whether or not the sights were lined up, and subconsciously it takes over that, yeah, it's confirmed. You don't sit there and wait for it. But the gun recoils up a little bit, and you're driving the gun over to the next target. That's when I really started to see some significant speed improvements, and that was a big one for me.
There we go. I had one here that's always a popular one. How to avoid your fellow shooter negativity. How do you avoid it?
At all costs. Run the other way if you have to. Yeah. It is natural for a lot of people under different kinds of stress to express themselves differently. Some people get very quiet. Some people get very vocal and negative. Whatever it is. But I don't, and most people don't shoot well if they're negative. If they shoot a poor stage and they retain that, they're not going to perform well. They're not going to be performing as well as they could have if they have it in their mind that they're doing well or did something well in that prior stage. So there's, I don't want to be around negativity at a match so that I get swept up into it. And as a new shooter, either new shooter in general or new to the game, you can get swept up into that. So I'm going to kind of exit that situation, not spend as much time thinking about that sort of stuff, and then for myself personally, I'm going to focus more on stuff that I did well, so I can avoid allowing myself to get kind of caught up into that.
Yeah, I've seen it happen with him standing right there, like next to it, and it's almost like he's in another zone. So if he hears it, it's really not. He's not really actually hearing it. He's just there. Just in another zone.
I had a guy come up to me before I could really kind of just relax at matches. I had a guy come up to me. We were about halfway through. We'd finished lunch. We were 2 or 3 stages away from finishing the match, and he said, "Hey, how'd you do in that one stage?" And I don't remember who this was. And I said his name. I said, "When'd you get here?" And he goes, "Morgan, we had a conversation for 15 minutes. After we shot our second stage of the match. We were standing next to each other. I don't remember it." You can get into that zone. I mean, whatever works for you, But at the end of the day, you can choose to focus on the stuff that you don't do well or didn't do well, or choose to focus on the stuff that you did do well. And which one of those two things is going to help you perform better on the next stage? Focusing on the positives.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when I walk up to a shooter and say, "Hey, how's it going?" and the first thing comes out of their mouth is, I hit the non-threat, I hit the no-shoot on this target, blah, blah, blah. And my very first thing I say is, "So tell me something you did well." I just stand there and wait till I hear the answer.
Yeah. All right, we got to...
Mine's always, well, at least I look good.
Yeah. That's kind of mine, too. I throw that one in there, too.
Hey, I look good. There's a positive.
Yeah.
Nikki, you always look good.
Thanks, Morgan.
Indeed. Let's see. We have some guys throwing some questions for Morgan in the YouTube comment section. I try to open it on my phone, and I can't get to it right now. So if you guys are putting in your questions in the comment below, I can't see them. Do it in the Q&A section of the chat. It should be in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, or you can shoot over to the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page, and it's the post pinned to the very top. You can put your question in there. That's the best way to do it. Jen, you have one off the Facebooks right now? You're muted, by the way.
We already talked about it. It's been dabbled on throughout the show.
There we go. Do what?
You had a question live?
Yes, I do. Tony Paul wants to know, when you first started, did you prefer to shoot as many matches as you could, or just 1 or 2 per month, and then put in more practice instead of matches? So practice, matches, which...
Tony, that's a perfect question. Thanks for asking it. As my skill improved, I spent more time shooting matches because I needed to work on my mental mind game. Before my skill improved, I needed to work on the skill, so I spent much more time practicing. So there's that healthy balance. When you look at a good shooter, they're made up of 3 components: the mental mind game, their technical skill, and their equipment. There's people that shoot guns they shouldn't shoot because they can shoot something else better. The mental mind game is a really important piece to everything. So as I got better with the technical skill, the Metal Mind game became the lowest denominator out of those three. And I don't care who you are, whatever lowest level out of those three, you just draw a straight line across the board. You're at a 10 here, a 9 there, and a 6 here. You're going to perform at a 6 across all three. So as I needed to, I wanted to spend more time shooting matches so I could get better at the metal side. The other piece of it, too, is you see more things at matches that you wouldn't think of doing or seeing. I never thought of shooting upside down until I shot that way at a Carolina Cup 2 years ago. I didn't know that you put guns in drawers and pull them out of drawers. I didn't know there was a really good way to get them out of a drawer, or how to roll off of a bed or a couch, or what the right way to shoot on the move is, or any of this stuff until I got to a monthly match. I didn't have somebody like me to talk to and give me advice, so I just tried it and found out the hard way sometimes what worked, what didn't work. So initially I spent a lot more time after I learned how to do the techniques properly. I spent much more time practicing. And when I say how to do the techniques properly, talk to most people that's participated in some kind of athletic endeavor and in team sport growing up or whatever. A lot of the core stuff is common knowledge. When you go to the gym and you want to work on your bench press, you know how to do it. You know what to do. If you want to work on your shoulders, you know to do the military press. Different things like that. But with shooting, it's not quite as intuitive. Like that, presenting the gun 2 steps before you get to an end shooting position, or to keep the gun at eye level as you're doing the reload. Depending on your body mechanics, there's usually one way to do most all of those skills that works best for 80 to 90% of everybody. But it's not all intuitive. You can't just sort of look and see it. You need to sort of have somebody tell you, hey, or show you, this is how it works, this is why you do it. And then as you get better, look at variations. I mean, I would never dream of telling Eric or Phil, don't ever put your index finger in front of the trigger guard. But I tell shooters, hey, that's not the most common way to shoot, with your support hand with the index finger in front of the trigger guard. By the way, Eric does it. He's one of the best shooters in the world, if not the best out there. Mm-hmm. But that's not the first way I'd start. But there are things like, hey, if you get your support hand higher up on the gun, closer to the border axis, you reduce the recoil. If you don't lock your elbows out, you'll reduce your recoil and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that it's not really obvious just by looking at videos or watching people shoot. So go get some instruction. Learn how to do the techniques the most common, practical way to do them. Spend a ton of time practicing. Because if you spend a lot of time practicing something in a technical way, range of motion, whatever it is, that isn't the best, you're just going to have to spend that much more time unlearning it, learning the other way once you figure that out. So, very good question, Tony.
There you go, Tony. Bring us another one here. I know he's just shot a couple USPSA matches and he's been practicing really hard. So, get us another one in here. We have one here from DJ. Changing points down will kill my game as a high speed. As I speed. What is it? Okay, there's a typo in there. Suck up the points down. So he's a 3-gunner, is an open class. So, but it kind of goes back to what Steve said. There's those divisions and an IDP. The thing with IDPA though, they're changing it across the board. Though, so right. It's not like, oh, well, I can just shoot an ESP and just go balls to the wall and speed's all it is, or like USPSA, just shoot limited and not production. So they're changing it across the entire game. The whole scoring's changing. So yeah, for someone like an open shooter like DJ, that's going to be a huge deal. It's going to change.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So let's assume a competitor's accuracy level is good. It's high. It's up there. Let's just assume accuracy. They have the ability to shoot accurately. If the primary game is IDPA, USPSA will help their game. They will learn how to see faster, they'll learn how to move in and out faster, they'll learn how to do stage reads much better because it's more difficult. If the primary game is USPSA, IDPA might not be their first choice for cross-training. So when the points change, if you want to be competitive in IDPA, to be a good 3-gun open shooter, you might not be doing yourself a great service by continuing to shoot a game and expecting yourself to perform well on the constraint of having to slow down that much. It won't help your 3-gun game that much.
Yeah, indeed. There you go, Jen. You had one on Facebook. You want to hit?
Yeah, Mike Bell asked it. He's the one that got all this gangster stuff started today anyway when he shared your photo and said I needed to post one. But he wanted me to ask Morgan if he can recommend a good book for a better shooting mindset.
So there's several that are out there. The first one I would start with, if you haven't read it, is with Winning in Mind by Lane Bacham. If you want to learn what it takes to understand the mental side of the shooting game, the action pistol shooting game, although he comes from a different angle in the sport that he participated in, all of the stuff that he talks about is absolutely relevant. When you think about the stuff that I talked about with the pre-shoot routine, shoot routine, and post-shoot routine, that's just one component of it. Being able to control your ability to shoot as close to your technical skill as possible is paramount to winning, to doing well. And most people, if they shoot one stage 10 times in a row, the first time they shoot it, they might shoot it in 20 seconds, then 17, then 16, then they might oscillate between 14 and 15. Well, the difference between that 14 and 15 and the very first time they shot it, although they got used to the stage after a while, is essentially the value of the mental game. Being able to, on demand, shoot as close to, if not exactly, at your top technical skill. So start reading with Winning in Mind. It's a short read, and I'll give away something that it starts with. It's all about perspective. When someone says in a stage, you shoot these targets freestyle and you shoot this one weak hand, well, I don't have a weak hand. I have a support hand. It exerts 65% of the grip of my combined hand set. I put a lot more stress on that hand to maintain control of recoil on the gun. So it's not a weak hand. It's a support hand. It's a strong hand. It's not my hand I write with. I get it. I mean, it's just semantics in the wording. But the same thing applies when he starts off the book and he says, when the little kid is going up to bat in a little league game, and everyone's yelling, "Don't strike out! Don't strike out!" What's the kid thinking about? Striking out. What should you say? You should say, "Hit the ball." So there's a lot of that in the book, and it's tremendously helpful. It's a short read, so like $14 online.
Yeah, definitely a book that I'm reading again. Read it before, definitely reading again. There's a lot of great books out there, but you do a lot, and this is one of the questions on my list here. You do a lot of articles for the Tactical Journal, IDPA magazine, and stuff like that. Is there a book? Have you been thinking about putting your own stuff out there for us to buy and soak up all the knowledge?
Yeah, I have an outline done. It's been something I've talked about for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Seems like forever. As soon as I get the time, I'm going to start putting pen to paper and really drafting it out. I enjoy writing the articles, but more importantly, I enjoy sharing the information. And rather than having a lot of disparate articles sitting out there, it might be nice to have it all in one cohesive set, even if it's 2 or 3 different short little pamphlets, as opposed to waiting until I get one big book done or something like that. But either way, yes, that's the plan.
So hopefully we can get one soon here. Hopefully it's not another 3 or 4 years. But but you can always catch Tactical Journal. Morgan usually has some really solid articles in that magazine. Let's see. Any live that you guys got? Steve, you have anything on deck just off the top of your head?
No, man. I think we covered everything that I was curious about.
Indeed, yeah. I think we got everything. On my end, do you have any upcoming goals or matches that you have coming up, projects that you have set up for this year?
So I'm shooting USPSA state match in a weekend from this coming weekend, Area 6 2 weeks after that, Carolina Cup after that, the Great Lakes Regional in between. I've got several other matches. I'm hitting USPSA Production Nationals this year along with IDPA national matches toward the end of the year. And kind of layering those in as I get time in between training myself and training others. Project-wise, the book thing, of course, articles I'm still writing, and I'm trying to put together stuff that is good supplementary materials, like the classes that I teach. I hand out student notes. But I want to get a little bit more detailed on a couple of the areas without adding a ton of information, just making it a little bit more valuable.
You have
So
some
people
shooter
can
notes
figure
there,
out-
Nikki?
All my shooter notes,
Yeah.
Morgan.
Yeah.
Mine
Yeah,
does.
one of the big questions I get asked all the time is, so how do you set up a practice plan? You know, what should I practice? Well, what you practice varies from one person to the next, but it also varies for you over time as you get better at one thing versus another. So one thing I alluded to earlier at the beginning of the cast was, if somebody says to me, how many different skills should I practice at any one time? My answer is usually 2 to 3 core skills. You know, if you layer in a whole lot, that's a lot to try and do all at once and expect high returns on that. Within those, how do I prioritize what I should be working on? So this is what I tell people. Let's suppose your draw to first was 2 seconds, and the best in the world does it in 1. And you do it 10 times in a 12-stage match because 2 of them, one of them's a box pickup, one's a pickup off of a ground or out of a drawer. So if you practice that draw for a full year and you reduce your draw from a 2 flat to a 1 flat, times 10 times, you'll save 10 seconds over the course of that match. Now if you're transitioned from one target to another, last shot in the first target, first shot in the second target is an 8/10 of a second. And the best in the world does it in half that, just like the draw, half the time in 4/10 of a second. But you do it 60 times in a match. Multiply 60 times 0.4 and you get 24 seconds. So which should I practice more or start practicing and spend a lot more time with? 24-second save opportunity or a 10-second save opportunity? I'm going to pick the 24. So, but then also layer in what I said earlier about how to do it. I need to understand the right mechanics on what I'm doing when I practice. So one of the things I'm working on is how I can better the classes I teach, the one-on-one instruction I do, with the materials, but also I don't like it when I go to a class and I've got 50 people there. You know, I'm one of the attendees and there's 50 people. You don't get the right student-instructor ratio, or you've got somebody who is just throwing a million rounds downrange or is talking incessantly. I want the right balance between what, explain the what, tell them why, and then do it. Demonstrate it and have people do it. So that's a big thing for me, is to improve the training stuff.
Yeah, there was a good balance. I've trained with a few people. There was a good balance of lecture in your training class. But one thing you also did is you had let's say you had me shooting around a barricade or whatever, or shooting an array of targets, and you had all the other students kind of look exactly what I was doing and point out something that I did really good and something that I can improve on doing. And most of the time you can't really see what you're doing, so you have someone point out. I know I pointed out a few things to a guy. I think he got a little bit frustrated because I kind of he says he didn't have very good balance. So when I told him, hey, you're lifting your foot up over here, and he kind of, but it makes sense to add that into a training course though, because there's a lot of things you won't see of you doing.
To get better, the hardest thing to do is to figure out what you need to improve on when you're watching yourself, because you're shooting. You can't see yourself, so you look at the video. Even then, it's not often easy to figure it out. The analogy is if you're spotting somebody in the gym and they're trying to bench press 315, you don't need to be able to lift a 315. You just need to be able to lift 10 pounds. When they get stuck, they're pushing up as hard as it weighs down. You just need to lift up 10 pounds. Same thing with this. It's difficult through introspection to figure out what you need to do better technique-wise, so it really helps to have someone right there watching. Well, the way they can see it, if you're a good shooter trying to become great, it's very minute, is to start watching everybody and say, if I was that person's coach and they got off the line, what 3 things would I say to them right now? And I practice that all the time, because that didn't help me become a good instructor. I mean, it did, but that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to learn how to spot that stuff so I could see it in myself. The better you get at spotting that stuff, the better you're going to become at helping yourself improve. Go ahead.
Excellent. You talk about working out, and you kind of mix that in there. And I know we've asked guests in the past. This is going to be like a 2-part question. We've asked guests in the past their thoughts on the importance of physical fitness, but going beyond that too, footwork is something that's been talked about a lot. I've noticed more recently, and it does seem to make a huge difference getting from point A to point B efficiently and changing position from a shooting stance and to a movement position, and then reacquiring that position of stance. So first, real quick, just do you feel like being in shape and maybe having some specific exercises you do is beneficial? And how does somebody go about improving their footwork?
Really, really good point. In USPSA, it's paramount. You have to be able to enter and exit, and you have to do it the right way and do it quickly. And in IDPA, same thing, just from a slightly different angle. The exercise will vary from one person to the next, but the one that I've done that works pretty well is basketball suicide drills, where I go outside on the street right out front of my house. I put down those little short 4-inch cones about 5-10 yards apart from each other, and I start in the center. I run to the left, reach down, touch it, and bolt out as hard as I can, run to the right, past the one I started from, and then keep going until I get to the outers, and I run that 5 or 6 times. Anything that's going to get explosive speed is going to be a good physical exercise for you to work on. So Nikki might be really good at giving some advice on that from folks that have to jump, spike and set, and all that stuff, getting into good footwork positions. The second is you need to know how to enter a position. Coming into a position where you're just slowing down is one component. You can achieve that by lowering your center of gravity and allowing your forward momentum to now transition from horizontal to vertical. In other words, you dip your butt, you dip your weight, and allow, as your feet stop moving, now that weight is down, and just allow it to stand yourself back up so you don't kind of Fred Flintstone as you're coming in, sliding home, sliding in a baseball home plate. But moving in and out of position, you need to be able to have your feet aligned in the right place as soon as you stop moving. The big thing is you got to be able to, it's not about how fast you can move there, it's about how fast you can start shooting. So if you've got 1 unit of time to move and you have 1 unit of time to push the gun out, aim, prep, pull the trigger, well, if you can put those two together, this is 1 unit of time, this is 1 unit of time, so this is the total time of my thumbs. If I can layer them in, even though it might take longer to do each one of those two, the total time is less. So the exercises, like I mentioned, anything that's going to allow you to get burst, explosive speed, work on balance, and then to know what right footwork to have as you're approaching a barricade. If you're coming in from the left versus the right, it's different than if you're coming in straight up.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I always kind of, some people do ask me for advice, and I do see a lot of the movement thing. In IDPA, USPSA more, but in IDPA, you see some people just taking more steps than necessary to get to a certain position, start shooting late and stuff like that. So that's one of the things I always, movement is a big deal. And that's where you can save some times. Like Morgan said, if you're going to be shooting 12 stages and your movement's, shaky, you're going to be losing a lot of time throughout the duration of the total match. And that's where you're going to get beat.
Yeah, and I see a lot of guys shooting around barricades, which you do a lot of in IDPA, they could have much better foot and leg placement. And by that I mean they're standing straight up, their knees are not bent at all, and so they actually have to lower their weight, push their legs around in order to get to the next shooting position. Well, why not stand in a stance where you have a little bit more weight on your front foot, a little bit less on your back foot, rather than equally positioned, so that you can actually push off of that back foot and get into a better position for subsequent arrays, or be able to kick out of that position quicker. If you're just standing straight up and down, you're not on a real stable platform. Now, the drill where someone's standing there holding a blue gun in front of them, and the instructor comes in and they tap the gun and try to push the person over. Your gun's not going to recoil so hard that's going to push you over. But if you're not standing in as stable a position as you possibly can be, you're not going to be as accurate as it can be, especially if you have one of those Florida State matches where you're shooting 4 or 5 rounds on a target, or others where you're having to do something similar where you're in an awkward leaning position or something like that. And I see guys that come up to barricades that touch the barricade, they crowd the barricade, or they're standing in such a hard spot that they have to move their feet a lot more than they need to. Every time you pick up your feet and move them, you're costing time. So I want to find out not just how I can move quickly and stop effectively, but also when I end up resting at that final position where I start shooting, I'm in a good stance so that I can explode to the next position if I'm leaving right after that target, or position myself to the next set of targets in that same array if I'm shooting IDPA. Damn,
there you go. And if you want to work on that stuff, Morgan's one of one of the instructors that really hit on that stuff, especially what he said with the barricade, placing your feet down there and then bolting out of that position. If your feet are placed right, you know, and a lot of people, I learned from that too, and a lot of people in that class didn't realize that, and it's one of those things that's hard to see. You can't really tell yourself, okay, this is how I was standing. You have the guys paying attention to you. They say, hey man, your stance was a little shaky on that, and then you go back and fix it. So pretty good stuff here. I think we're kind of winding down. I got no more Q&A. Jen, you got any Q&A? Steve, you got anything? Nikki, you want to throw in here last minute?
I'm good.
Good. We can wrap it up here. We'll start off with Jen. We'll start off with you on shout-outs.
Okay, I've got Sharpshooters of Augusta, Shooters of Augusta, Savannah River Armory, Load Up Ammunition, Terran Tactical, Blade Tech, Vortex, Carbon Arms, TacticalLife.net. I think that's all.
That's good stuff. Morgan, what do you have? And if some people want to get a hold of you for a training class, or maybe they have a question for you, where's a good way to get a hold of you again?
Yeah, just hit me on Facebook. If we're not friends, friend me, and or shoot me an email at Morgan_Allen, Allen, at yahoo.com. If you send it to Morgan-Allen, it's some law firm in Oklahoma, and they started forwarding my email that was meant to go to me somewhere else that I won't even mention. So, underscore, the underline thing.
Yeah, the underline thing. There you go. You have any shout-outs you want to throw in there?
Absolutely. Hang on one second. Let's see here. Can you see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Trying to get the shot of the shirts there. I've got rangelog.com, Rainier Ballistics, Blade Tech, CZForum.com, Tachyon, Brass Exchange, Springer Precision, and an indoor range near me, the Sportsman.
Sportsman, there you go. Steve, what do you have? Shout-outs.
Always CZForum.com. You guys know that one already. And, of course, Weapon Shield. And that's pretty much it. I'm easy.
When are we getting some Shadow 2s, Steve?
Next week I'll have 2 out to you. No,
really?
I'm just kidding. I wish.
I don't know. I got 2 of them. You can have one. Yeah.
Hey, as soon as they're available, man, I hope that I can find a way to get my hands on one, but we'll see.
Yeah, we got to get hopefully we got to get something going on with that. Maybe that'll finally. I always wanted a CZ. I always liked the way they feel in the hand, but I never pulled I never went to spend the money on one. I always said, screw it, I'll stick with Glock and master that gun. But maybe this Shadow 2 will get me in that. Nikki, what do you have as far as shout-outs?
First one, shout out my mom. Hi, Mom. Watching this show. Morgan's
Mom.
Other than that, same as always, Criterion Barrels, American Defense Manufacturing, Eagle Imports, Pure Gold Shotgun Chokes, Stage Zero Shooting Supply, Beyond the Sights, my local gun shop, The Outdoor Shop here in York, South Carolina, True Spec, Safariland, and shout out to the Techwear for the new 2016 jersey. Came in yesterday, looking pretty sweet. I don't know if y'all can see that. Heath will.
Is it a blue and black?
It is the palmetto, which is the South Carolina state flag with the thin blue line to support local law enforcement and all law enforcement, but with our state flag meshed in there too, with the blue line going across the back as well. So that's for Heath and me being a police wife, and Heath will be rocking the 2016 jerseys at the Three Gun Nation Southern Regional this weekend. So he gets to wear them first.
That's a fine jersey. Techwear usually puts together the really fancy jerseys, man.
Techwear has been amazing. My older sister, though, I got to shout her out. She actually came up with the design with the thin blue line in the tree, and then helped me send it over to Techwear, and Techwear just
knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Shout out to my end. I want to just thank Morgan for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure we'll do a lot more talking, and we'll probably appear at some matches. I wanted to ask you about that Carolina Cup, but I know it's going to go in to another long conversation show. I'll probably ask you outside the show here. But I want to give a shout out to Tactical Shit, shop.tacticalshit.com. They're a big supporter of the show, man. They have some great gear and a great website, and they like to have fun. So I like guys to like to have fun, and those guys are good people to hang out with. Also, subscribe to the channel. Right below the video, you're going to see the subscribe button. Every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, we do another episode of The Shooter's Mindset. Plus, I do some gear reviews, and so I always upload. Well, majority of the time I upload all my match videos for people to pick apart. Let's see. Gear Nation USA wanted to give a shout out to them. Local company here is really starting up with some really fine all-American made apparel. So check out TechWear USA on Facebook. They don't have a website yet. Check them out on Facebook. What I have: Rise Armament, Dewey Rods. I got TechWear USA, Fort Mill Munitions, and Carbon Arms. I'll wrap up, and we'll wrap it up with DK Custom Triggers. All right, they do some fine Glock triggers over at DK Custom Triggers, so check them out. That'll do it. Email if you want to get hold of me, theshootersmindset@gmail.com, and be sure to check out theshootersmindset.com. We have a new website just being revamped. It should be available in the next couple of days for you guys to go check out. That'll do it. Steve, Nikki, Jen, thanks for coming on, helping me with the show. Morgan, we'll talk a little bit after the show.
Yes, sir.
And that'll be it. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to 128 we're on now. Episode 128 of The Shooter's Mindset, and we are out of here. Have a good night.
Bye.
You too. Bye.